Welcome to Wager Talk. I am Kelly Stewart, joined by Teddy Covers at Teddy_Covers and Hakeem Profit at Ski Profit on Twitter. Guys, we are talking the NBA. Now, I'm excited for this one. I've recently gotten into the NBA a lot more thanks to both of you, our awesome handicappers over at Wager Talk in regards to that sport and specifically. Now, some of the things that I've learned about handicapping the NBA have come from both of you, but I'd like you to share it with our audience. Teddy, I'm going to start with you. I know you have 5 points as well as Ski to go over how we should be looking at the NBA specifically in regards to a handicapping perspective.
Sure. I'll start with my number one. And it doesn't get any simpler than this. In the NBA, I want to ride the hot and fade the cold. I want my money on good teams that are playing well. And I want to be betting against bottom feeders that are playing poorly all year long. Even when you know a team stinks. The Knicks, 6-15 against the spread last year after the All-Star break. Everyone knew they stunk. Didn't matter. The markets don't catch up with the very worst teams, and the hot teams continue to pay dividends, sometimes for weeks, even months on end.
So, Teddy, in regards to hot versus cold, I know that you can catch those teams on a hot streak. Last year, the Orlando Magic went on an awesome run there before the break. And these are types of teams when you can catch them on game 1 or 2, then they go on a nice 8-game run out of 10, whatever it may be. That's great. But where are you trying to find these teams? When is it too late to be jumping aboard?
The goal is to find them as early as you can. You know, when you see a team that all of a sudden they're playing better, back-to-back wins, maybe you pay attention. You see a team that's all of a sudden playing a little bit worse, maybe back-to-back losses. For that third game, maybe it's time to chump in.
All right, Hakeem, I've seen you handicap the NBA. I've been next to you. I've seen your note sheet. But what is the number one thing you're looking for when you're crunching those numbers?
Well, it's kind of in line with Teddy. I'm looking at how teams are playing recently, and it depends on each league is different, each basketball league. But for NBA, in a normal season, 5 games is pretty sufficient. That tells me how each team is doing about the last week or so. And if you look at offensive rating, defensive rating, rebound percentage, and pace, that's going to give you a good idea about how each team has been performing recently. And that's the start of my handicap each week.
Teddy, what is your number 2 thing you're looking for here in regards to handicapping the NBA?
Well, let's talk about some stats that matter. Because, even at handicapping sites, I see some ridiculous stats. How many points per game a team allows? Those aren't influential stats. They're not predictive stats. Predictive stats that matter. Offensive and defensive efficiency. Points per 100 possessions allowed, points per 100 possessions scored. Effective field goal rate allowed on offense and defense. Rebound rate percentage, the percentage of available rebounds. Turnover rate, not how many turnovers per game, how many turnovers on average per possession. And of course, you want to be aware of the pace for totals. This is why, these are the stats that are meaningful in the NBA. And it's definitely worth noting, home courts don't mean as much, especially for the good teams that can win on the road. But the offensive and defensive efficiency numbers, the effective field goal rates, the percentage of rebounds, the turnover rate, the pace, these are the stats that matter. And everything else, it's just static.
There you go. All right, Hakeem, you went over a couple of the stats that matter to you, but one of the things that Teddy mentioned was teams off of back-to-back is always this kind of trend I've heard that it's so super important is, the Lakers are off to back-to-back, so I'm going to fade them tonight. How important is rest when handicapping the NBA?
I definitely look at that rest factor. When they play more games, it gets to be a little bit more like maybe 3 games in 4 nights, 5 games, 7 nights versus a more fresh team. Then I'm looking at what motivation does that tired team have to play? And if they don't have any, then I'm likely looking to fade them. And sometimes they do have motivation. Maybe it's a revenge game or maybe they're playing for a playoff spot. But other than that, when a team is dog tired, I want to stay away.
Teddy, your thoughts on some other things we need to look for when fading the NBA? One of the things that's when handicapping the NBA, one of my favorite things, it's not necessarily a handicap, but it's a situation is all of a sudden Steph Curry's out, LeBron James is out. There's a big name player that is injured or decides to sit for the night and the line moves 6 points.
Sure. So for an individual game, I love betting on the team whose star is sitting and you're getting an extra 6 points of value. in a game where every other player is likely to step up, and all the guys that weren't getting shots all of a sudden are going to get shots. So the NBA marketplace overreacts to injuries routinely. And routinely, I'm looking to bet on teams that are going to be playing without a superstar player that particular evening. But when we talk about the NBA marketplace, the broader NBA marketplace as a whole, once you get 10, 15 games into the season, there are season-long stats that are going to really influence the markets like nothing else. All right, the season-long stats control where the point spreads are going to be. But as we know, throughout the course of a season, especially with role players, guys that don't move the needle for the point spread, but have a huge impact on a team's rotation or on a team's capabilities, they morph. When a guy gets hurt, a role player gets hurt, teams go from being great to all of a sudden going 1-9 against the spread in their next 10. So as a bettor, I'm looking to maximize the morphs. When a team's playing at this level, and then there's something that causes that level of play to change, whether it's better or worse, it can take the marketplace a long time to react because they have this full season-long stats to deal with. I'd like to throw out the season-long stats and look at the morphs. When a team is morphing, that's where you can make money betting on them or against them before the markets catch up.
Hakeem, can you speak to how you're going to handicap either away or home teams? I know with this year maybe being a little different because there may or may not be fans. What are you taking into consideration here for these NBA teams as far as playing at home or playing on the road?
Yeah, well, if there are no fans, it won't mean as much at all. But if there are fans, I definitely take it into consideration. You look at teams like Miami, who perform significantly different at home versus away. Teams like Philadelphia. Another example could be OKC. They're a team that you wanted to back as a road dog. Things like that nature are things that I'm looking for. And one other thing that kind of catches my mind, it could be a little more advanced, is things like some teams, it's based on travel, but a team that plays well when they played on the road last game and then they're going home, or a team that played at home last game and then they're going on the road. That was Dallas. Dallas, when they were on the road after playing a home game, they had a great deal of success. So those are things that I'm looking for.
Teddy, can you speak to the derivative market in terms of the NBA just a little bit? And then can you also explain to maybe some newbies that are on this video, that are watching this video, what the derivative market is?
Sure. Derivatives are just another way to get at a team. Let's say you want to play the Lakers -6 against the Heat. All right. That's the full game wager. A derivative wager could include Lakers first quarter, Lakers first half, Lakers first team to 10, Lakers first team to 20. You can bet player props on Lakers that you think are going to be successful in that ball game. There are all kinds of different ways you can get at betting on the Lakers or support of the Lakers without actually laying the price on the Lakers in that game. And when you talk about modifying the swings, look, NBA, there's going to be a lot of games, sometimes a shocking number of games that come down to the final minute and you're sweating them out. And sometimes you're on the right side of those, sometimes you're on the wrong side of those. And it's inevitable. When you play some of the derivative first quarters, first half, half times, first to 10, et cetera, in game, you can find ways that you're going to cash some tickets and have less stress when it comes down to that final minute if you cover or not. The derivatives help modify the swings, and savvy bettors should definitely take a look at the derivative marketplaces as well as the in-game marketplace, where you can really take advantage of teams doing what they do in the NBA, making runs. One team makes a run, you bet on the other team in-game, the other team makes a run. The goal is to get both teams at a plus price, on the money line, or both teams catching points, then you can't lose.
Very good point there, Teddy. Hakeem, one of my favorite things in any kind of handicapping is finding those little nuggets, those trends, those angles that give you that little nudge to make that wager. What are your thoughts on the trends and angles in the NBA, and which ones are you looking for to help your handicap?
Yes, some mean very little, some mean a lot. And the trends that hold the most weight to me, I'm looking for how teams play versus different tiers of competition. How teams play versus teams 55% win teams or better, 45% win teams or less, or in between. And like for example, if maybe a team's going to beat up on the Knicks and teams of that tier, but when they play competition, they fold. Or maybe it's the opposite. Teams that were good against competition last year, the Boston Celtics. So those are ways that I approach the matchup every single day.
Teddy, last but not least, I have your notes here in front of me. It says you need to track your results. Is that just as basic as it sounds?
Yeah, but I'm always shocked at bettors that don't keep a spreadsheet of what they're doing. When you track your results, clearly, every bet you make, win or lose, guess what you're going to find out? You're going to know what teams you have a good read on, what teams you don't. You're going to know if you're winning when you're laying points with bigger favorites. If you're going to win when you're cashing in with live dogs. Accurate tracking helps you know which type of bets you're winning with and which ones not so much. And when you have that info, you focus more on the type of bets you're winning with and less on the not so muches. So accurately tracking your results every single day is a key part of the process. I thought it was absolutely a must include on any top 10 NBA handicapping tips video.
Hakeem, last but not least, can you please speak to how the injury reports affect your handicap?
Well, yeah, I'm always looking for matchups, more so in the playoffs. Matchups matter more, but every single game, I mean, you can look at the injury report, 8 a.m., 11, and 2, I believe. But for example, let's say for the Denver Nuggets, when Gary Harris was in the lineup, they're playing more towards unders. He's a defender that they need that helps the team defense significantly. When he's out, the team scores 1,000,000 points. They can't defend anybody. OKC, when Steven Adams is in the lineup, they play pretty good defense. They play a little bit slower. When he's out, they want to run. They don't have anybody to protect the rim, so they go over. So those kind of things are what I look for, or why I'm looking at the injury report, and I just parlay it together with the matchup.
All right, great stuff from both guys. Thank you to Ski Profit and Teddy Covers. We will have tons of NBA videos coming up here in the next couple of months, so make sure you guys head over to our Wager Talk YouTube channel and check those out.